Welcome to Podlygamists, the Sister Wives Rewatch podcast.
We sit down each week and recap an episode of TLC's longest-running reality show, following the Browns, a Mormon polygamous family originating in Lehi, Utah.
I'm Samantha Kaiser.
And I'm Haley Graff.
And this is Podlygamists,
Season 2, Episode 8.
Okay, so we faked ourselves out a little bit last week. It's still the holiday episode. We're still at the cabin. We spend this whole episode at the cabin. Yeah, we get into some good stuff.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have a lot to talk about with this one. More so than the last one, probably.
Yeah. So I guess, the title of this episode is Sister Wives in Holiday Crisis. Which isn't like, I don't know, not what I would like summarize. I don't think it's holiday crisis. I think it's just crisis in general.
Holidays, I guess. So
yeah, the description is that the wives, the description is that the wives struggle to accept that this will be their last Christmas in UT, and they wrote it as UT in the description, which I thought was like, we're two more letters. You couldn't just say Utah. I don't know.
Honestly, whoever they hired now to take over for the intern is just phoning it in.
Really, they really gave them a strict limit on characters.
Yeah, are they tweeting this or something?
Yeah.
Like, was that the point?
I think even so, they still have some characters to spare, but
Right?
Whatever. We're still back at the cabin. Everyone is coughing and seems to be sick. Everyone is coughing in this not tiny cabin, but tiny for a family of 21 or however many we're at.
And we got such a lovely montage of them all coughing, too.
Which, like, hits really different post-COVID. Like, maybe then it was like, oh, man, they're sick. And I was like, ugh.
Right. Grosses you out so much more now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of, I would say it's probably gross anytime.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest. Like, it was pretty gross and, like, phlegmy sounding, but,
I'm sure they love now watching back just video of them just coughing. Really needed that captured, you know?
Family, those magic family moments, you know?
Memories.
I wrote that also, overall, this cabin looks awesome. I mean, all the sledding, all the snow. Like, they're talking about how, yes, they get snow in Utah, where they're from, but, like, not like this, where it's, like, especially when you're a child, it's, like, it's as much snow as you are in terms of height. Like, it's probably pretty magical. Looks pretty magical.
It's like the kind of snow I had when I was a kid, and I don't really feel like we get that anymore now to those levels. And maybe it's because I'm grown, or maybe it's because of, climate change. But probably the climate change. But it just, when you have so much snow, like just feet of snow to play in, it's just so much more fun than just having like a dusting.
Yeah. Let's see here. Where do we kind of what's our first plot that we sort of follow?
Well, they're picking up where they're talking again about getting prosecuted, and they're very worried. And I don't know, I feel like, yes, I would be concerned, but also I cannot realistically see them prosecuting them modern day. And with the show and stuff too, I feel like given their publicity, if they had gotten arrested and the family split up, fans would have rioted, you know?
I think people would have. I mean, they're like not only on TLC, but they're in the news. You know what I mean? Like, we recognize these people at this point.
Yeah. We can clearly see that the kids are cared for.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of abuse. So they would only just be doing it to be like spiteful at this point.
Exactly. Well, and that's kind of what the vibe was of that last article that they posted. Just like, oh, they've made it very easy. It seems like the prosecutors feel like they're just giving them the big middle finger.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? From behind the TV screen, basically, like, look at us now. What are you going to do? But really, it is an insurance policy. They have cameras in their house all the time. They have plenty of documentation of like a averagely happy, healthy family. Like, there's not much. What are you going to complain? What are you going to report them for? Besides that Cody has more than, like, the only problem is that Cody has more than one wife.
Who are all consenting adults.
Exactly. So,
and, you just think about like the foster care system now and how, like, I have examples of people that I know, of relatives and stuff who it takes so much to lose custody of a kid. Like, the system thrives, like, wants you to keep custody of your kid. It's very difficult. Like, parents who should not be parents and who are ruining kids' lives are still have custody of their kids when they shouldn't, because the system is tailored for them. So I just find it like it would be really surprising if they took them away.
Yeah, I mean, I know particularly here we're in our, well, are we in the same county? I guess probably not.
Mm-mm.
Well, in this county, I know a bit about the foster care system and that the number one goal is reunification. There has to be hard evidence of harm, like
Mm-hmm.
actual significant injuries, that kind of stuff that can be proven to the parent. Like there's like, and the intention behind that is actually good because there was an abuse, obviously, of the ability to take children away from their parents. I mean, if we look historically, especially
Mm-hmm.
like, and that's I actually did write that down here. I wrote down, I wonder what this even means to say that the kids would be separated, the family would be separated. Are we talking foster care? Are we saying that that's what happened to Christine's family? Because it's never mentioned. What they say is that the moms were split up and they didn't know where each other were. And to me, I'm thinking, yes, this was in what, the 40s, probably, like some time ago. Harder to find each other if you. But what did they just load them up in 4 cars, drive in the opposite direction, and drop them? Like, how did that work? Do you
And
know what I'm saying?
yeah, and I mean, they had telephones at this time. I'm assuming you could call the operator and ask for so and so.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I mean, before they got split up or whatever, could they not have had like some kind of plan? Like, if we do get split up and we're forced to go our separate ways, we're all going to reunite on this day at this place. You know, just
Or
something.
something.
I just so
Send
it
send a bunch of letters to grandma and she'll like connect us. You know what I mean?
to have a
Something. Like,
middleman, you know, that
yeah,
knows where you both are, and
yeah. Like no one knew where they were. Like they couldn't have called again one of the sister's moms or whoever, another sibling, an actual like a blood sibling, and be like, "Do you know what happened to Sally? Oh, she's in whatever now. Great, sounds good." You know what I mean?
very
I
dinner.
just they're so vague about what that meant. Besides that, her grandfather was arrested. That we know that's what they say,
Hmm.
and and supposedly went to jail. But
Hmm.
there is here's my thought. Here's my theory. And I that's why I keep asking you if you've seen Severance, because I'm like, this ties into the show Severance, which I love.
I'm gonna make
Um,
it. Well, I promise I will get to it.
but I wonder, but I can still make I think the connection without Severance. That might have even been a stretch, but I just want to connect everything to Severance right now. Um,
Yeah, this is the second time today, for reference, that Haley has asked me
yeah.
if I've watched it yet.
And like the many times, like the 100th time in the chat that I've been like, "Have you watched Severance yet?" But they there's always in these kind of like shady groups, and there's always there's oftentimes in any group, not even shady group, there's like the, and I'm going to use the word myth, but I mean that to refer to like a story or a tale, not necessarily that it's false, but just that it's
Mhm.
like the unifying story of prosecution is what
Mhm.
ties a lot of groups together, right?
Right.
That's kind of something that Mormonism, it's one of the theories that Pastor Jake has kind of talked about. It's like they have this like unifying thing of prosecution where they've had to pack up and move across the country to live out their beliefs, and that's what's made them strong, made them like so willing to. It's part of like the repopulate, like they need to make more Mormons, that kind of thing. Why they have so many kids.
Mhm.
Um. So, anyways, part of me wonders if this story is heightened or exaggerate, and again I don't know, but I wonder because we get so few details on this story. Just they're split up and they say it so many times. They say it so many times, like every episode they're like, my grandfather, and it's like, yes, we know.
Mhm.
um if that's kind of that's kind of like their origin story tale
Yeah,
or whatever, that like inspires them, that like vindicates their like mission and their beliefs and that kind of thing, more than it
I
is
think you're
true.
probably right. Hmm.
That was a long way of saying that, but is
Yeah,
that,
I agree,
yeah.
though. I think, like, yeah, that's just been ingrained in you since childhood, not even just personal family story, but religious story. So it would be hard not to just kind of take up that narrative yourself when you,
Yeah.
at the slightest provocation that it might be happening to you too. And you're like, see, we've been warned of this our entire
Yeah.
lives, you know.
Details are added, things are escalated, like, because it's like a game of telephone a little bit where the story gets passed on and like, but you need to make a point so it gets more dramatic. And they were all separated and they didn't know where each other were. And it's like, the logic of that doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
I would argue that the logic of Mormonism doesn't either, but
Well, okay. We can't pull that thread too much or it's all just going to, we can't.
checks out.
Yeah. So anyways, that was a bit of a diatribe, but you know. So yeah, Severance. There's all the tie to Severance that you'll never know until you finally watch it, but we'll talk about it when that happens.
You know what? Maybe this weekend I will finally get my act together.
You keep saying that.
One of these days I will.
So I think we get to telling the big kids, right? We don't actually see it happen, but we see like their couch confession, like recap the kids, all the 5 oldest kids, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
On the couch. And Maddie's not pleased.
She reacted about the same way I'd expect her to have reacted.
Well, she kind of famously hated moving to Vegas. Like there's like it's like kind of family lore about the way that she reacted and her like emotional phase and her angry angsty teen self, which again, knowing her now and what a mom she is, it's the funniest thing, but
you change. You don't stay a teenager forever.
Right.
I don't remember when she says it, but she's like, me and my best friend, we're going to be legends in this town.
I think it comes up later, but yeah, she's like, why don't you want to move? They ask her, I'm going to miss my best friend. Me and her, we're going to be legends in this town. And I wrote later on, whenever that actually comes up, I'm like, okay, Fall Out Boy or whatever, like emo, like band, you're like Green Day. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's so like, you said that so earnestly and you looked right at the camera and you meant it. She meant it.
That was not just like, that was genuine.
What a corny teen melodramatic. It was just so cute. It was
like coming of age movie plot, like
just so cringy and cute at the same time. She's like, oh, yeah. Maddie, like she meant it. She meant that so hard.
They were gonna be legends. Damn it!
In this town, I'm like, I'm like this polygamous girl and her probably Mormon friend and their little Utah town where they go to private polygamous school. They're gonna be legends in this town. Just like legends for what exactly? Like. Your music? Does she have a bass guitar we don't know about? I don't know.
Dude, she totally would play the bass guitar. If she didn't, like, that was missed. That was a missed opportunity.
So the kids that are all on this couch confession are Logan, Mariah, Maddie, Espen, and Hunter. And we kind of get all their takes. Logan, of course. He's very logical, very very corporate, and he says, you realize you have limited time to tie up all your loose ends. It's like, how many loose ends do you have when you're 16 in Iowa?
School.
Yeah, I'm like, tie up these loose ends, Logan. You gotta I don't know, close some deals. What is happening?
Right.
He's just such a little.
Gotta close all my accounts and switch things over.
Oh, my checking account is local. I'm never gonna be able to access it in Vegas.
Oh, too bad. It's just he's such a little Cody.
He is, and yet he's so Cody and so Janelle because he's not emotionally driven. Cody is, but he's very logical and practical, and he's worried about his loose ends that he's got to tie, and he is worried, but he's not expressive and charismatic as much as the way that Cody is.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of cutting back to the cabin because we have a hot tub that everyone's really jazzed about. There's minutes of footage of them being trying to, and Cody's like, it's not warm. If your body is 98 degrees and that thing is 97, you're not going to be warm. There's so much back and forth, but we got to get in the hot tub. They're shoveling it off, the snow.
A lovely view from the hot tub on the deck of the mountains in the background. It looked really nice.
The whole cabin looked awesome. Yeah, I wrote that it's a wonderland with the sledding hill and the ramp.
Right.
And we then go to everyone's kind of down the driveway, kind of shooting down this hill, which must be ice. It must be so slick by now. So
they're gonna have fun driving their cars out of that.
Yeah, trying to get out. Oh my god,
making it even more slick as they sled over it.
With a Suburban that's already on its last leg.
Mm-hmm.
Robin, Mary, and Cody are also sledding. And they acted like the editing in this was real crafty, where they're we see Mary go like up the ramp. They build this ramp like alongside the house, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Like the snowbank they're like shooting off of once they get down the hill is like 10 feet from the wall, not even of
Right.
the house. But Mary, we have to cut to commercial break after Mary launches over the snow hill and gets like, and we're like, oh, something terrible happened, and she's fine. She just kind of got stuck.
Between the house and the snow.
It was just like everyone in the house is like, she hit the wall, and everyone panics, and Mary, she's just laughing, like, I'm just down here.
They just like hyped it so much, and you're like, nothing happened.
They cut to commercial. It was like in all the previews, as if she like breaks her neck or something.
Right. And
She is just
we'd have to
fine.
have like an ambulance figure out a way to get out to this snowy cabin. And maybe they
No.
would have gotten like sled dogs or something to pull Mary across the tundra. I don't know.
This like Saint Bernard with like the little
with the barrel.
medicine barrel. Let's see.
I liked though when they were sledding, and like one of them, I don't know, one of the kids goes and like sleds down and goes up to the ramp and just kind of like crashes into the ramp and just stops really suddenly. And Cody's like, "Good stop," and I was like, "Are you gonna ask if he's okay?" Because I was kind of like smacking into the ramp, but whatever.
Good stop. Yeah, congratulations on stopping.
Right.
There's a lot of discussion kind of in like implication that there's like a cloud kind of hanging over the older kids because they're the only ones aware. And like part of me, like it's good that they told the older kids sooner, but it also seems like pressure to put on them that's like
Because they're still
not fair. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess they gotta tie up their loose ends, but it's just a weird thing to have that they have this knowledge that you think they didn't tell any of the little kids. Like I don't know, Hunter's only what 14. He's not like really a big. He's not like
I think he's maybe like eighth grade, maybe.
Yeah, he's like young enough to be immature and be like Garrison. Well, we're moving, or you know what I mean, just like
Yeah.
that dumb older kid thing of like spoiling things.
Yeah.
So I don't know, interesting choice, but I guess he actually takes it very very hard or whatever. He's not. Um,
And Maddie, the way she said it, which I thought was like a good way of saying it, it kind of clearly articulated what they're feeling. She's like, all we like about the move, she's like, all we know is what we're leaving behind. And I mean, yeah, that's true. And like that's true with anything in life. Like all you know is what you've experienced before. You can't predict the future. But it is like it's especially poignant with the move. Like they know that they love their life there. They know that they have their friends and their school and everything. And everything's just uncertain and up in the air when they're going. And that's never an easy thing in anything in life. And especially that, like, I was lucky, I never moved or anything and switched schools as a kid. I went to the same school throughout from childhood onward till I graduated. So you never to be the new kid, But I can't imagine that's an easy role to play.
At that age, at the age that the older kids are, it really sucks. It's like you only have a couple years left of primary school or whatever is grade school, and so like it's such a weird time to transition in.
Yeah.
Hunter's like a little better off being younger, but like the kids that are like 16, you have 2 years to like make friends and try to have like a good high school experience. Doesn't sound great.
Yeah, like you have to like go to prom and like
and they're this is winter, so like they're going mid-year and they're just trying to help the kids wrap up their semester basically, which isn't even a full school year, which also is not. That'd be a weird position to be in.
Because you're gonna just jump in. Like, who knows what other schools' curriculums are studying at the same time? Like, history class at one school could be way off from it in another
state. Yeah, it's not even like the same school board that's like running it or the same.
Yeah, like I mean, they all have similar things they cover, sure, but it's not like you're always moving on the same track as every other school in the nation. Like,
yeah, and I also know that feeling of like that age when you like. Your life is so much, if this is how to say it, it feels so much longer than it is. Those years feel so much longer. Like looking back, high school was like a nothing. It was like 4 years. It's like I barely remember. I feel like I barely remember most of it. But
I've forgotten so many people. And I graduated with like 55 people in my class, so very small. And I honestly don't think I could name them all. I've forgotten people I've gone to high school with.
And I mean, in hindsight, it's like, that was no big deal, but when you're in it, when you're that age and you're half of your life, all of your life has been in school so far, it seems like the biggest thing in the world. So
yeah,
I definitely feel for them, and we know that they don't take it well, and it takes some time to adjust. But
Yeah.
discussing the smaller kitchen in the cabin, um, it's a topic that's like, I don't know. It's not a big topic. I don't know if they stretched it out or what, but it did. Knowing what we know now about how the kitchen at home ended up being a huge point of contention, I wondered what kind of underlying like passive aggression there actually was going on. They
Right.
kind of laughed it off like, "Oh, we did so well," and like blah blah blah. But Janelle's not interested. She's like just removed herself from the situation. And
Classic.
Robin's really, yeah, of course. And Robin's really excited because she usually feels like it's Mary and Christine's kitchen, so this is like neutral territory for her to also be in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm. And they were saying, I mean, because Christine's kind of dominating it, which makes sense. She's got a cooking show now, you know, kitchen's kind of her thing. And then they were like, oh, you just need to like assert yourself more, Robin. But it's like, I wouldn't go over to your house and just start using your kitchen, you know? Like, or I wouldn't just go and like start working your television, you know, like unless I was like staying there or something and it was like an established thing. But you don't just come into someone else's space and just use it as though it's your own. You're still like a guest,
Hmm.
so to speak. And so that's what Robin feels, you know.
Yeah, and like she never really gets that level of like, it just occurred to me she never really gets that level of sister wifing. Like
Yeah,
she never lives in the big house with everybody
yeah.
or in a big
And that
house with
was like
everybody.
what she supposedly wanted, and she never quite gets that.
I mean, maybe she wants it because she doesn't know what it's like once you have it. But yeah, it is something that she kind of like longs for. It seems like.
I thought it was interesting that with Janelle kind of checking out of doing the domestic skills, that she was like, well, back, you know, in older days, we'd be like, oh, it's because Janelle's just lazy. She's not helping out in the kitchen. She's like, and that kind of was like a point of like hurting her self esteem. And she's like, well, those are just old tapes that are playing. Like, it's not actually something that's going on in reality. And like it's just interesting because like it's just not her forte. Like she's just not domestic, and that's fine. Like she
Yeah,
has clearly her other strengths of working and
she's certainly not lazy.
yeah,
Like,
I would
yeah,
never call her lazy. Like
yeah.
so, it's interesting to hear that she was maybe thought of that way at one point in their
And
histories.
someone maybe said that. It sounds like, yeah,
Yeah,
makes you wonder a little bit. Um, Especially knowing how like we have learned that Mary is like supposedly so controlling and so like like this bossy or whatever they describe her
right.
as. And I'm like, if it was at one point just her and Janelle has this like whatever this snapshot memory of like someone calling her lazy. I'm like, was that Mary? Maybe like it seems possible.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see it either Mary or Christine. I could see it either way, but if Mary is like the supposed domineering one, then yeah,
Yeah,
maybe should be like stop being so lazy and get your ass in the kitchen like and help, you know.
I could see her blurting out something unflattering, like just being
Yeah.
frustrated or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Cody's made me cringe so hard. His comment about all his wives bumping hips in the kitchen. I was just like, "Grr, grr." That like all of what we've seen and we know about their family. That is the biggest like ick factor I've ever had with their lifestyle was when he said that. I was like, this feels
A little weird.
icky and like old timey like patriarchal gross weirdness. I don't know. It
Yeah.
didn't sit right with me.
No, and because like Robin even said too, she's like he got all like doe-eyed then looking at them in the kitchen, and I was just kind of yeah, I was like, okay.
It's like the one moment where I'm like, oh, polygamy is really weird and gross. Like it's like the first time I've felt that way.
Honestly, watching this show, like you don't really think that. Like
No.
if you go down a rabbit hole and think too much about like, oh, they're sharing a dude, like she just slept with him the night before, and now you're gonna sleep with
Yeah.
him tonight. Like if you get too into that, then you're like, yeah, it's effing gross. But yeah, like you usually don't though. You usually just think of them as a family, and you're not really.
Yeah.
But there are just some moments like that that are a little.
Because it was so explicit. It was so much like calling it what it is when they never do that. They never
Mhm.
directly talk about like we all the stuff about them sleeping together and like what that is like is all conjecture, and this is like oh, he's getting a real like kick out of like all his wife's
Together.
cooking for him. Like it just like just didn't sit right.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, this, yeah, he does have sex with all these ladies. Okay.
And like all these kids came from somewhere. Like
Here they all are.
I don't know. It just for some reason it really popped a light on that I don't normally like pay attention. I don't like normally think of it.
It normally really does not cross my mind.
No,
but
it's something about that statement was
too
direct. Yeah.
Gross, Cody.
I think we get to see Mary's PJs and we do our fashion show at lunch.
Cute.
Yeah.
Oh, now you gotta do the clap. Fashion show.
Yeah. Fashion show at lunch or at whatever this probably dinner. They all look like just little like kind of scrubs, like they're like night shirts.
Yeah.
And scrubs like with the V-neck t-shirt type.
Yeah.
But
they were all very excited. It looked like to get their stuff. Like, and then I mean it was so cute. And my girl Truly, did you see her entrance in the fashion show? Please tell me you did.
She's being held up like Simba. Yeah.
Yeah, that just clapped. It's like she wins. I don't care if she wins.
Then the kids do the kid gift exchange, which is very sweet. Like the thing where they each like it logistically makes sense where they each get one person a gift and they all draw names and like of course they can't get children cannot get 16 other children gifts. But it's so sweet that they like are so excited and you really see like their closeness, like something about like the kids like hugging each other, like earnest, like in like very naturally. I don't know why. Like I think I do think of them as like kind of cousins more than I think of them as like real siblings. But when they sometimes they play together and like act together, like you can really see like oh these are siblings. Like they're extremely close and like so sweet together.
Well, some of them like when they're hugging the older kids that gave them the gifts, and I just thought that was so sweet because like I have older siblings, but I never had that kind of relationship with them, and I would have loved to. So, like, just seeing that of, like, Logan, you know, like, hugging the young ones, and, like, just, like, they really, like, look up to him, and it means so much, like, getting a gift from him. Yeah. It warmed my heart. It was so cute. I did have a question about the camera crew. So the camera crew just hung out for Christmas with them, or...
In this like sauna of coughing and like grossness. Yeah, I was thinking of them too. I'm like, they all get sick after this. They must have because it's not like the windows are cracked.
They stay though. Like they could not have stayed in that cabin, right?
That's a good point. Maybe they take the snowmobiles. We didn't see anybody using the snowmobiles. Maybe those are for them.
Who knows? But I was like, what a fun Christmas for the camera crew to spend it with a family that's not their own.
And they're all sick, and they probably all got sick. That was that. All I was saying was all that, and they're all just like,
Great, we're so happy to be here.
Snapshot of the cough. Snapshot of the cough. Snapshot. They're just like, okay.
That's fun. Maybe they did that as like a side eye kind of thing. Like, I am gonna film all your
aggressive.
Yeah,
like we were forced to film here,
so I am gonna document it. Damn it, this is what I dealt with.
We see, I think, Robin exchanging her gift with Mary of a figurine. It looks like one of those like Willow
precious moments,
or precious moments. Okay, of sisters.
Yeah, are they the same thing? Willow, precious moment.
Willow are like faceless. My mom used to actually collect those. I think, and they might not be called Willow, but do you know what? They have like white gowns. They're faceless.
It's like gray face. Yeah. Gray head or whatever.
Willow,
like stone.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I don't know what it was. I didn't get that close of a look at what willow tree they're called. I didn't get that close a look at what Robin's had been. But Mary is moved to tears, which was I don't know, surprising for a figurine.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe she's
really happy. I mean, they do have like they are really close, and they're like, yeah, our sister wives are like our sisters, and I'm like, that's great, but like, and I love my sister, but I mean, you'd say the same thing. I'd never share a guy with my sister.
Yeah,
you know, I don't know if you can say sisters is really like the most accurate way to describe that relationship. It's
I mean,
akin maybe to
maybe
sisters.
the closest way that they can describe it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, there's a moment where that when Mary's like reflecting on that with Robin on the couch, and she gives her a long look. Did you catch it that
I
when they're on
did
the couch
actually.
and she's just like for so long, just like looking at her with like such intensity, and I was like, this is
Yeah.
getting
You're like, what is this?
strange.
What's happening here?
We know that they do get very close, and so maybe this is just like the beginning of that connection that they had because it hasn't really been there up until now that I've like really noticed.
I think the only time I really like kind of noticed him is initially when she's like, "Yeah, I hit it off with her right away" or whatever, and
Mm,
introduced her to Cody. But like we haven't, we see in subsequent seasons like they do get very close, that they have a close
yeah,
knit connection, whatever. But yeah, I don't know what that look exactly meant.
like without being like I'm not being like glib. It's like that really is like the I was like, this is a very like affectionate look, but
And if you had the right music in the background,
yeah,
would
exactly.
it
You could have
be?
really framed it differently.
Yeah,
Um, whatever. I mean, they're very close. We know that. Can you see Scout in the background here?
I do.
Standing. Hey, what you doing? Lay down. Okay.
Oh, one other thing.
Okay.
That was what Cody was asking about the closeness of the sister wives. He's like, has anyone ever been closer to a sister wife than to me?
Yep.
Which was an interesting question, I thought. And he wasn't like mad or, like trying to be like,
He's
it would be a
curious.
problem if you were. He's like, no, I'm just curious,
Hmm.
And like,
He genuinely seemed just curious. I thought.
yeah,
Yeah.
like he wasn't trying to be like, it would be a problem if you were or something. He just really wanted to know because that maybe could happen.
And I bet like if we're talking about just like emotional closeness, I bet you there's been phases. They seem like they really did not want to answer that question for some reason.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's apples and oranges. I'm like, but we could make it. We could say like if we equate it to just like how close you feel to a person.
I mean, think about like your girlfriends and stuff. Like, yes,
Yeah.
it's obviously a different relationship than the one like with your husband, but there are things that you tell your girlfriends that you don't necessarily tell your husband.
Yeah. Or you just like are really connecting with someone for some particular phase or reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I don't know. I'm like they seemed really uncomfortable with that question though, I thought.
yeah, and I'm like, that's not really. I mean, it's not really that weird. Like, he didn't mean it like, are you attracted to this person
Right.
over me? Like, but just you're going through something that maybe a fellow woman could understand better than him as a man could.
Hmm.
There are just certain things that like you need other people for. Like, one person can't fulfill all your
Yeah,
emotional needs.
exactly.
So
Yeah, I wondered if they just didn't want to open that door to like seeming overly affectionate or what. Yeah, or they really just felt like you can't really measure. But I don't know. To me, it was like seemed like they really did not like care for that. I think we're exchanging gifts, and what the catalyst to this next conversation is that McKelty receives a cell phone,
mhm.
and so Christine's on the couch very like lightly, like yeah, I got our phone because um, if we do move, I want her to be in touch with her Utah friends. And she's very like, just, yeah, chill.
Mhm.
And then Cody like turns. This is on the couch confessional. He turns fully like, 180 degrees or whatever that would be to 90
Mhm.
degrees to look at her. Says, "Are you still confused about whether or not we're moving?"
Yeah,
What was your reaction to that?
I was like a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because it obviously brought me to present day where
Yeah.
there is a very just like a mirror conversation happening of them potentially moving back, and how Christine seems like she really thinks present day that they were going to move back to Utah. And then when they said, no, we're actually not, that it just hit her like a ton of bricks, that it just like threw her for a loop. She really thought they were going to move back. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's exactly the same thing here, except in reverse. It was kind of stunning just how exactly the
Yeah.
same it was.
Yeah, I totally. It's like it makes you wonder like how much Christine is like willful about like believing, kind of hearing what she wants to hear and believe what she wants to
Yeah.
believe, or if she's like really. I can't imagine at this point she's really left out of these conversations to the point where she had no idea they actually were like for sure moving.
Right.
it was weird. And Cody's choice to, in that moment when they're in front of the film crew on the couch confession, so it's not like they're in life, like they're
Hmm.
being asked questions and stuff, and he takes that opportunity to say, "Are you confused?" It
Yeah.
just so weirded me out. The word confused.
Yeah.
The word confused. Because, like, did she
Like,
use
because
that
that's
word?
like she's not comprehending.
Like, you just can't, like, you're not understanding? You can't understand this conversation we're having? Like, you're just
Yeah.
going over, you're not
You're too
old enough?
dumb.
Like,
It's
it's
going
like,
over your head.
yeah. It was just weird. It gave me, I don't think it is this way. It gave me very, like, weird gaslighty, creepy vibes from Cody a little bit to be like, "Are you confused? I think you're confused, honey. Like, just go to bed." Or, just like
Seems
this.
to be in your head, you know. If you're feeling
Yeah.
this way, it's because you're making yourself feel this way. Like, yeah.
And not only that, but the look on Christine's face when he says that, I have so many questions. I was like trying to read that. I rewound it so many times because she like stops and she kind of like does the like sucks on your lips and kind of
Mhm.
like bites the bottom lip and like does a real like there's a real expression on her face. If it's like stunned, if it's she's kind of like just taken aback, if it's
Mhm.
like rage where she's like I'm choosing not to believe that. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
where I'm leaning and she goes, "Yep." And it's just just I could pick that whole like 1 minute exchange. I could just pick it apart forever. Just that like,
Yeah.
"Yep." Like,
I know, like, that's the thing. So, like, for the listener, I mean, this week Haley's got some travel stuff, so we're doing a double record this week. So we've watched 2 episodes, and we were
mhm.
talking about whether or not to watch them back to back. And I said, I can't because I have to sit and think about this episode before I start the next one because I just, like, had so many thoughts reeling about this one.
About really just that moment, like this the rest up until now, it's like, meh, family fun,
Yeah,
whatever, mostly
it's a
for the most
lightheart,
part.
you know, we can just throw it together, comment on it, you know. But this one, I was like, I really just have to sit and like ponder this one for a bit. And I don't think I've cracked anything, but I have just been thinking about it.
If I could ask her anything, it'd be like, what did you feel in that moment? If she felt like, I can't believe you're doing this here and now. Like I was just talking about the kids' Christmas gifts, and all of a sudden, Cody, like turn this into this conversation. This suddenly felt like very private. It suddenly it seemed like for
Mhm.
them, like nothing else was going on. They were having a personal conversation.
Which has happened multiple times with those two, and I just feel like it's awkward for the wives, it's awkward for the viewer, it's got to be awkward for the camera crew. It's
Hmm.
weird.
It is weird. It's so weird, and it makes you feel like they're very used to just like slipping into that. Like they're just driving along, all of a sudden it's a debate. All of a sudden it's like like an argument about something.
Yeah.
Like oh, you always do that. Like it just like really just like doesn't take much for them to turn on each other a little bit.
Yeah.
I wondered. I don't know, but I did write that they turn this into a very personal debate, and she says he's not listening to her point of view. Like they're like, you just don't listen to my point of view. Like they're literally. It's so like unnerving because you feel like you're not supposed to be like in this.
I'm just
But
gonna exit. Like,
yeah,
we're just watching it. Like, it's very awkward.
I mean it's true. It's true reality TV. It feels very sincere.
Yeah,
But
that didn't feel like it was at all put on or anything. Like, that
no.
was a real moment.
And then she doesn't want to make the decision in fear. Is like Christine's whole point. And Cody's kind of just right, it's not quiet, just kind of like not saying much. And Robin pipes in. This is the next part that I was like, this is weird. She goes, "You need to tell her why, Cody." Like she's like 2 seats away, or just like you need to tell her why, Cody. Tell her why we're moving. You need to explain that to her. And it's like now they're having a private conversation, but everyone's present for it. Like it's just I'm like, ooh, I see why maybe Christine has a grudge against Robin if this is how this goes, where he's like, I mean, she's trying to be helpful, but she also is making it feel like she has a intimacy with Cody that she doesn't have. Like she's on
Mm-hmm.
the inside of this and Christine's on the outside. Is how it
Mm-hmm.
felt,
Yep.
right?
Exactly. And the one thing, I mean, so 2 things.
Yeah.
Christine being like, I don't want to make a decision out of fear. Okay, I get that.
Mhm.
And if you can avoid making decisions out of fear, you likely will make better decisions, obviously.
Mhm.
However, We don't always live in a world, though, where that's possible. Like, sometimes decisions that you make, like, are a necessity out of fear. Like, sometimes that is just the reality of it.
Yeah,
And
you
this,
have to.
yeah, this is just one of those times.
Mhm.
So I'm sorry that sucks. It's the way it is. The other thing is that Christine's like, yeah, you're our leader, which, again, I get kind of like cringed out at that sort of. I get what she's saying, but also I'm like, ew, like,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, and I think it makes sense in a certain respect because you have more of a group instead of a partnership going
Yeah.
on. So you kind of need someone to sort of lead the group. I I find it annoying that it's the man. That's just me. But sure, sure.
Yes. Sort
So
of what they signed up for, it's
yeah,
kind of what they wanted. Yeah.
but it's so okay though. I mean, but if you are signing up for this, then you do kind of have to, like, y'all sort of had a
Conform.
vote and you're outruled. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
Yes, exactly. You have to, when you agree to join this, you don't get a 50-50 vote. And sometimes you're going to get outvoted. And maybe you're going to often be outvoted. Like, you might have the opinion that no one else seems to. It happens again and again. They take a lot of votes over the
hmm,
years for moves, for builds, for all kinds of pretty big choices. And
hmm,
yeah, majority rules. And Cody like kind of gets a double vote, a little bit. Like if it's sort of split up, we're gonna go his direction.
right.
Um, and as much as I'm like critiquing Robin's like piping in with her like commentary and coaching, which was like irritating. Like it. I know it came from a place of like she needs you to
Trying
she's
to
waiting
facilitate
she's
that.
waiting for you to engage, like, and you're not engaging, you need to do that. But like I can see how that would be so not the thing Christine like needs is right now is Robin like inserting herself. Yeah, it feels like it shakes up their hierarchy a little bit because it puts Robin in a place that's kind of above Christine.
Which,
I
technically speaking, she should not be. But
Technically, right. Um, but it did. We talked about this a tiny bit, over the chat at work. Um, that Robin might be more of a scapegoat than I really ever realized until now. Because current day, all Christine points back to how many 12 years ago, which is kind of where we're at now, 11 years ago. Like it's been 11 years and it's been bad or whatever,
mhm,
of like their marriage, of how she's felt about the family, blah blah blah. And we've always said, well, who shows up 11 years ago? It's Robin.
right.
But in the same year that Robin shows up, not the same calendar year, but the same like 365 days,
Hmm,
they move. And Christine does not want to.
right.
And that's almost bigger because she accepted Robin in the family. She does not accept this move really like yet.
Right.
And turns out they probably wouldn't have been prosecuted if they were in Utah. Like
Mhm,
the law changes eventually. It's kind of bullshit to start with. Like she's kind of right.
mhm. That, like, they're being maybe a little too reactionary to.
Yes.
And the thing is, they haven't even been contacted directly by law
No.
enforcement. This is all hearsay. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they're just jumping. And I understand, like,
And I've never been in a position where my like faith or whatever it has been subject to prosecution. Like it's just never been so it's just hard to like put yourself in that position where like you could be arrested just for the way you're living your life.
hmm,
Like that is
that's
even if
scary.
even if they were never to be arrested, that like atmosphere it feels bad, I bet.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, I think it doesn't help the situation that Christine was kind of right. Even though you couldn't say that at this time, no one could have guessed that. They would have been fine probably if they stayed, and she might have been happy or maybe not. Maybe she still would have been unhappy, but
And the thing is, too, because Christine, I think, has like a lot of resentment for Cody already here because she says how he's so enthusiastic about the move. And she's like, it really seems like you want to go and you want to just start over and everything. And he's like, well, I'm just being optimistic so others will follow me. And he's like, no one's going to follow if I'm like dragging it around with it, and just being like, I guess we have to do this or whatever. But I kind of feel like I feel like Cody kind of enjoys the narrative that he would be like a martyr for his faith by having to move. So
When
that
Christine
would
said
kind of
that,
to excitement per se. You like, I get to be this person in this story. I get to be the hero that saved my family, kind of deal
it's a
by
little bit of a thrill.
help.
It's a little
Yeah,
bit of a thrill to like be It's the same thing as like I was trying to get at earlier. Like it's the kind of their lore. It's their family story of like
yeah.
he's the leader of this ship and he has to save his family
He's
and
Joseph Smith leading them
yeah,
out of the
yes,
whatever in Missouri to go to Illinois. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I didn't think of that on my own, but when Christine said it, I was like, he doesn't really. I don't think I would have got that from watching the show, but knowing that she has more like insight and the way
Mm-hmm.
she kind of smiles when she says that to him, I'm like, maybe like that. I could so see that being the case where he's just like he's riding this wave of like martyrdom,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
So I agree. I have questions about that too. Um, we pretty much wrap up on with the older kids who are getting really emotional about the move, and it's particularly Hunter, who we know I remember once we move him having a very hard time and being pretty depressed about leaving his football team behind and his friends crying, and all the kids are like, we don't ever see Hunter cry, but he's clearly heartbroken, and
Yeah.
all the older kids are having a tough time,
Yeah.
and it's kind of where we leave, I believe.
Right.
Um, And again, we're recording a double header, so like I don't have much of a conclusion either. Just I guess we'll wrap up this one and we'll start preparing for episode 9 pretty quick here. So, thanks for joining us.